Mm-hmm.
Oh. Oh, fucking hell.
See, it was because I went behind you.
There we go. God, what a pain in the butt. I'm actually getting kind of tired of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way to shut it off either.
Mm-hmm.
Get the arrow out of there. Okay, that's going. Really? Edit.
Hi, everybody. It's Chris and Joanna here. And I guess we're going to do a Patreon talk with Chris and Joanna.
Yep, that's what we're doing.
And today is, what is today? The 10th of January. We were actually just sitting around chatting this morning, and then out of nowhere said, Chris is like, we got to record now. And I'm like, oh, great. Because what's been happening lately, just between you and me, is that we have these conversations as I'm having a leisurely morning, no shower, no nothing, maybe a walk, so I'm kind of stinky, no makeup, no nothing. And Chris is like, we have to record right now. I can't wait for you to get better. I'm like, well, okay, here we are. So this is how it's been lately. So, I tried to at least comb my hair, and put on a jacket under my PJs.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going on. And this is what's been going on sometimes for a while now. But in all honesty, part of me must not be really too concerned about it because I'm participating in it. I didn't put my foot down and say no. So part of me was like, they're just going to have to love me as I am. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to say, but it's the truth. So that's just how it is. So we were just chatting this morning and we thought we would have a little bit of this conversation out loud. I think it's a really interesting set of dynamics that are going on. Everyone, of course, has been following the political arena. And again, we always joke that the political arena, the theater of puppets, is really just, again, part of, what's going on around everywhere with the confusion. But the one aspect that kind of goes along with some of the things that we've been trying to say for the last years is now becoming apparent, at least to some people. And others will be seeing things and questioning it as time goes by. Now, the one thing that we've always said about how we have perceived life and how we have been encouraged to perceive life is by categorizing things. It's not unusual for a human in your brain to put things into categories in order to know how to maneuver throughout the world. Nothing wrong with that. It's when, it's also used as a manipulation technique. Now, again, you can start labeling your categories. Some people like to label categories and then start spewing in a form of racism. So sometimes it's appropriate to be claiming that there's not equality and things going on, but sometimes it's also used as skew because of categorizations, and it really may not be absolutely a truth, given certain situations, or it may only be in certain places or in certain situations, but you've categorized now in a way that makes you think always or never, or it's just the way that the human brain kind of works. So, you can think of it, like that. So categorization of life is real, but when it's used to manipulate you because they know it's easy for people to operate in categories, it's easier. Okay, it's certainly easier to operate in a category, and again, I'll just use race, that all the people that look like this, or religion, that all the people that believe this, A, B, C, D, E.
They all act a certain way, yeah.
Right. And especially if you've had a bad experience. I like to use the simple experience of like, and why would that be? But again, it's how we operate. is some of the natural way we learn. If you're a child and your mom may be telling you, don't touch that stove, don't touch that stove, and you're still curious and you're going to do it anyway. If that stove happens to be red and you get a bad burn from touching a red stove, you're going to avoid red stoves. Okay. You're going to somehow, you're going to maybe associate that color with the bad experience, and you tend to then want to stay away from that. Or you had a bad experience in a particular style of home and you hate those styles of home now. Okay, it's the way that we operate, way that our psychology and how we are operates. And I would love to say that people are just left alone to deal with it, but again, over all of these years, it's been used, the psychology of being human and how we happen to do things has constantly been used as a manipulation tool as well. Now, obviously, for those that are becoming more aware of this, especially in this past year, you've seen a lot of these strategies and techniques being used. What I think, again, though, what, like we talk about enhanced discernment, I call it enhanced categorization, where you may not even realize that you have put people into categories and thus giving these people traits, okay, or whatever. And so in the political arena, that's been done heavily, and you wanted to believe that certain types of people were in this type of category of politicalness, and this type of behavior was in this category of politicalness. And certain, I'll even go there, and certain intelligence agencies only worked with certain people, and other intelligence agencies only worked with other people, and then you gave the people within those agencies particular traits. Okay, so what actually I think um, happened, especially over these last few weeks, or I guess maybe you can really say the last week or so, is the realization that, as we've been trying to say, everything's been infiltrated. So you don't want to operate off of, they are in this category, thus they must be, because we've been trying to tell you for years that across the board. I mean, this has been going on for so long. It's just mind blowing.
And people apply these labels like all Republicans are supposed to act this way, all Democrats are supposed to act this way, and also this goes to all groups being infiltrated. Also, people tend to say, "Oh, the CIA are the ones doing, say, the Voice to Skull, or the FBI is doing this type of spying, or the CIA is sitting out in front in a van." Or you've heard a lot of those conspiracy theory type stories and everything. Well, the thing of it is, it's no one group that's doing this. It's a multitude of different ones that have the same capabilities. They have different signets, they have different insignias, they have different groups. Also people apply, like the branches of the armed forces, like Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, and now Space Force. But within all of those, you have all of these subsections that you may have bits of Air Force, you may have bits of Navy, you may have Marines, you may have Army in there. And you have all these other groups that may have been in all of these that have different signets attached to them. That work with corporations, that work with all sorts of things, and these are that's also when people apply these different labels. Oh, this is doing this. Well, maybe not. It just depends on the situation. I mean, the Air Force has been probably the most guilty so far with some of this stuff. But before I sidetrack here, there are also in politics now people, especially with what happened with the election, especially here, where people went, "Oh, Antifa did this. Oh, socialists did this. Oh, the Republicans did this. Oh, the Democrats did this." I'm telling you now, it's the cabal that did this. And it's their non-cohesiveness that did this. They're warring with each other that did this. Did Trump expect to be betrayed? No, I don't think completely. No.
I think Trump, the man walking on the surface was actually taken aback
Yeah, I think he
by
was. Yeah.
realizing that even, folks that he maybe thought were so with him that they weren't.
And all groups are infiltrated. They could have been programmed immediately to do these things
So,
too. Yeah.
so I think, that, but do I believe that the over soul, the larger person that Trump is, I think part of the service sometimes people come in and do is they are actually seen as the buffoons and seen as the this and that, so they can help people become aware of the existence of things.
Like the existence of the swamp itself.
How bad the swamp is,
Yeah.
and that the swamp, when you say swamp, you have to say everything. You wanted to believe that the White House was not in the swamp. You wanted to believe that certain places were not in the swamp. But basically, what you're really dealing with is a horrible swamp. And is anything left floating on top that hasn't been swallowed in completely by the swamp? That's really more of what you're dealing with. And, are any of these people going to be able to create life rafts to come out of the swamp and get to shore, let's say, start draining it to make it better? But what you're actually seeing right now again is something where you have to face in yourself, that, wow, I maybe still had categorizations that I need to let go of. And again, you have to discern the individual messages, not the people. And that's part of what we've always been trying to say. Listen to what's being said. Do you, feel drawn to the material or not drawn to the material? You should be blinded to where it's coming from, because the hope is that you're going to categorize. And if you've seen yourself as a staunch supporter of something, that you will staunchly support because it's coming from the category that you have supported. Now, I know we're talking political, but this is everywhere in life. This is across the board everywhere in life. And what you have to learn to do is to, again, what we've said from the very beginning, you must learn to deny the known. It's almost like you must start from scratch again, and give yourself the opportunity to have different perspectives, based on simply the one desire to move forward and to have other experiences, instead of regurgitating old strategies and old experiences that kind of kept you at the whim of someone else's desire versus what you're trying to actually grow and learn into yourself. But it goes across the board. And so, you think you got it, going on, you hope you got it going on. And then as it is meant to be, the energies, your personal desire to grow are going to bring other things in front of you for you to sit back and say, wow, maybe I don't quite have it all going on yet, because boy, I certainly did this or wanted this. And then there is what I call, again, and understandably so, the lazy factor. And let me tell you something. It is normal for a teenager to be lazy. It is normal. If you got a teenager laying around the house, this is a normal part of growing. As we get older, we don't mind becoming more engaged in things. We don't mind doing these things. We don't mind going and doing whatever, putting forth a little bit more effort. If you knowingly, know what it means to be a parent and how much energy it's going to take to do that, that's a decision. And you can't quite be as lazy as maybe you once were. But again, you find the rewards are stronger than that. So it's all okay. This now, again, is a challenge to, let's say, our laziness of trying to go through life with how we have categorized things in a sense. And the truth of the matter is, until we learn to break through some of these ways that we have been, we're going to be stuck within them still. And so these are some of the challenges. And again, wanting the savior to come in and do it for you so you can continue to be lazy. But it's not going to behoove you going forward with all of these potential categorizations in your mind of how to operate. It's not going to necessarily benefit you there. So it's some of these things have got to be broken down. Again, all of this stuff is in the self, where you have to break these things down and break the way that you're seeing things down. Again, deny the known, manifest differently, so that you can now move into something in a way that you are now free to co-create in a way that is better for you. So these things have to come to light. They have to come to light, and these things will continue to come to light in ways that will be just in your face to some people. To other people will be real shock and awe, where you want to say, I told you so, but they just couldn't see it.
Mhm.
And they couldn't see it. Again, this is the hard thing to believe. They really couldn't see it.
And this goes back to an example that I saw many, many years ago in the early 90s, to be exact. There were two people that got on a talk show, and this shows the programming pretty loudly, in fact. And they were talking about a UFO encounter they had on a beach, and I don't know what city this was in. Well, what took place was the one guy pointed and went, "Wow, that's awesome," and he took a picture. And the other guy went, "That's an airplane. What are you talking about?" And took a picture. And obviously, it was a black like triangle of some kind. And it was very obvious what it was. No, there was no question as to what it was. One guy saw it, the other guy didn't. Well, this guy got a printout of the picture done. He went and got it printed, and these two men were on this talk show, and every person in the audience was given a copy of the picture to show it, and it was up on a screen and all this other stuff. Well, this one guy that couldn't see it was very embarrassed to be there. He was just very fidgety and very embarrassed. And when the host asked what was wrong, he goes, "I don't know why you people are making such a big deal. This is an airplane. It's like a 747 or something. It's right here. Can't you see it?" And everybody just kind of murmuring to themselves. And the host went, "Okay, let's perform an experiment here." And they gave him all a marker, said, "Trace around," and he told the both men to do it too. "Trace around the shape you're seeing, just marker like that." And the only person not to trace around the triangle was the one guy, and he drew the shape of an airplane. He literally could not see what was in the picture. And that's how deep set, especially in the 90s, that's how deep set that programming actually is. And think of it, all that you're seeing now is that same type of thing. If you question both a hardcore Democrat and a hardcore Republican, let's just use them as examples, they would not be able to see outside of their party boundaries. If you went in and also went into some of these other religious groups, they can't see outside of their religion. They base all that they're talking about on a template that has no foundation, has no cohesion to it. It's an illusion. They're basing everything off of that template. It's like a mathematician basing everything off of a certain set of equations. What if they had a few numbers wrong over here and they're not seeing the rest of the equation over here? They're basing their reality off of what those numbers are telling them. And again, following the numbers usually tells you the truth, but they're not seeing all the equations because they're limiting it to what they know about physics and what they know about science. It's the same type of restrictions. It's the same type of capping. And also, this brings me to very recent stuff. Are Biden and Trump playing this role to help waken people up? Yes, I do believe that. Do I believe, like I said, did Trump know the extent of the swamp? His human self know the extent of the swamp? No, not in the slightest. Did he give it a valiant effort? Yeah, I could see a little bit of a valiant effort there. Do I think there's a reptilian presence with Biden? Yeah, I do. But it does not mean that I'm taking one political side over the other. It's my observance of what I see is actually going on. And do I believe what has happened in 2020 woken up a great deal of people? Yes, this is what I want to clarify as to what I said on Interstellar Council on Friday. I wasn't saying 40% to 50% of the people aligning with a particular party, even though that's what some of the numbers show. Oh, they were there were a bunch of Trump supporters. I was saying for a moment in time, almost 50% of the United States woke up just for this long. They could literally see everything that was going on. And that is the highest number that I have ever seen. Do I believe some of them may have tapered off from that since then and maybe got demoralized by what was happening and kind of went and just kind of trailed off? Yeah, but once that pilot light is lit, you can't unlight it. So that was the point of that entire exercise. Do I believe Trump's role in that awakening, in that part of the awakening, is done? Yes. Do I think he's done with more of what he needs to do? No. The same thing goes with Biden. If the people needed Biden in there to show them what oppression actually looked like, if they needed that mirror, if they needed that reflection, this is why you have somebody like him in there, who's part of the swamp. Also, this is why you have somebody like Trump in there that shows not only the tendencies that you may not have wanted to use during this, but also the things that are the surrounding that you may not have seen before.
But also he's part of the swamp.
And he's part of the swamp too.
So
yeah.
Let's not, because we're not, pretty much the first thing that happens to anyone once they get there, and no offense. And
two cabal families you're dealing with, folks. Yeah, you're dealing with cabal.
So his hands weren't clean even before he went in there. So we're not trying to say that. But it's interesting what you're talking about now. It makes me think of, again, it's easier to do a categorization. But when you really break down, what is it about, let's call it the Trump supporters? What is it that they're actually supporting? Well, there is this huge effort right now on election integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, election integrity is really not a party affiliation. It shouldn't be. Everyone should want that.
No, it's not red or blue. No.
Right. But I think what happened is because again, since it was brought to light by the Republican side for their reason, for their reasoning, but really what it is it's election integrity, and everyone across the board should care about election integrity. So the goal would be that election integrity will still be a part of the conversation no matter what. It's an interesting thing that happened multiple elections ago when everybody was realizing that this is an interesting dynamic, and you really have to understand how they operate to get this, because people will rise up and they will bring up some very good points, and they're starting to see through. And then there will always be an attempt to quail them back down, put them back to sleep, do these types of things so that the business can still going up. There's a bit of a either take a whack-a-mole or do something else to have them distracted, fall back to sleep.
And yet you're dealing with people that are experts in this type of subterfuge.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
You've got to big deal. This is what you really have to understand. So everyone can remember many years ago when it was talking about, the integrity of just being in DC, and how, there seems to be this underlying corruption that begins to happen. Maybe people should not be career politicians. Maybe there needs to be term limits, not just in the presidency, but in the House and Senate as well. Now the question will come up that it's coming back up again, as it should. It should have never died out, but it was able to be quelched. Now you add in there, wait a minute, should we be allowing these corporate people to have revolving doors in and out of such important political positionings, where laws end up being changed to then support more of that corporation? So, but what had happened is that, again, the people trusting those up there, right, with their categorization, and maybe because times are rough, you get a little bit something back, a little tax cut, a little something coming back, you're lulled back into your daily life, and they still conduct their business, put everybody back to sleep. Now it's all coming back up again. okay, about these kinds of conversations that try to make it to the surface with the Tea Party and all of this kinds of stuff. It's coming back up again. Why is it coming back up again? It needs to come back up again. These conversations need to happen about, if we want and really have the desire for a system that really works for the people instead of for corporations and elitists, the conversation's got to come up
You
again.
must talk about this. It's
And
always going to come back.
it's always going to circle its way back up as, humanity is saying, wait a second, no, I'll fall asleep for a little bit. Oh, wait a second. So these kinds of patterns, and so now you have the up the ante. So now you have people realizing in a pretty large level. So now you have to truly go to the next level. And I mean, the strategists are now going to the next level. So it wasn't so hard before. So the interesting thing about now the crucifixion of Trump, this isn't about the crucifixion of Trump. It's about the crucifixion and being able to squelch what some people refer to as the movement of Trump. But again, I wouldn't categorize it as that. What you're really talking about are the people that believe in election integrity, and that something could be wrong. What you're talking about is people realizing maybe there is a swamp that's corrupted, and how do we protect it? This is the following that they've labeled as the Trump following, but it shouldn't be. It's not a Trump thing.
It's just their desire for change.
And again, now they're categorizing.
They're basically saying either Q or Trump. It's always in that category.
And so, right, so they're doing that so that they can give people that are, more aligned currently with some of them a target. But really, and so they're going to wrap it around a name that irritates people, and they're going to focus it on that. Okay, in order to squelch these ideals that are actually not party affiliated at all. They're just, wait a minute, how should we treat one another? So these again are strategies. It's very, very interesting, again, watching what's really going on. Now, how long, is this craziness going to last? It's going to last until people realize we're done with it. A lot of people aren't done with it yet. So, so these things really are going to continue to happen because, again, why? Why can't it just be over? Because you are not ready personally to move into the new energies, carrying all this baggage of the way you currently perceive the world and move within the world. You must grow in order to be able to break out of certain things that then will benefit you in the new energies as you begin to meet new people who don't operate in this way at all. They're not going to operate in this way. And you need to be a little bit more prepared to be able to meet the ones that everyone here wants to meet, who have telepathy, who've seen it, done it, who know more about you than you know about yourself. You have to be in a way to, to be able to cope within that, or you'll just be rolled over because, again, you want to believe that everything is sitting on a heart cloud, and benevolent out there. And that, again, is a very large lie. So, you really do have to understand that we're still in something that we've said since we began this, really, which was now almost exactly 4 years ago since we began this, that we are currently in a tingle ball of mess, huge yarn ball that's just as messed up as it can be. And we're still in the same mode of trying to untangle this tangle ball of mess to find ourselves underneath, so that we can choose that we've had enough of yarn and we're going to now do things a little bit differently. So, this is part of what's, going on. These are, I like to try to help people maybe understand why we're going through this, why there can't be a savior, why these things need to occur. And again, another false statement that, other people are holding you back.
It's just not like, true. Yeah, and I've said this before also, the interstellar councils. Also, I'll use this as an example. I saw this not too long ago, it was very brief, where somebody and several somebodies in several other videos, unrelated to each other, unrelated by people or by video or by topic. All were saying the same thing. It started with one of the political ones. It was in New York about the governor and all this other stuff, trying to implement some of these policies that he's trying to implement. And somebody said, well, somebody needs to take care of that. Well, across 10 or 12, 15 other videos, well, somebody needs to take care of this. Somebody needs to stand up and take care of this. Are you aware? All of you just said that. That somebody is you. And I'm not saying in a violent uprising way either. I'm saying in a how Viking and I say the silent army, where you're actually helping to change things. Like you can protest and not necessarily be violent either. Like those business owners saying, well, when are they going to stop this? No, you have to stop them from doing it. You can't just expect them to stop. They're not going to stop. They're to the last breath. They're not going to stop. You have to quell them. So you have to quell them energetically, and you have to quell them thought-wise, heart space-wise. Yes, are they playing out a contract and an agenda they have to play to the hilt? Yes, that means they will never stop. So you must put your foot down, but you also got to remember when not to set something on fire either. So you have to be in the mindset to where you're not giving in to their gaslighting, which is what it is they're doing. They're trying to get people to do stuff like that on a violent level so they can crack the hammer down. They can't crack the hammer down in the way that some of the other people in the new age crowd and them thinking that they're going to, unless they're given permission to. That permission is coming after them with bats and pitchforks and torches. So do that in here and in here, but don't actually fall for it.
Or again, attend peaceful rallies and be peaceful.
Yes.
And sit and just let your energies work together as a big collection.
But doing nothing, that you can't do that either.
Waiting for someone else to show up. But people then don't understand enough about how energies work to realize that, again, daydreaming in what you want, acknowledging what is there and saying you don't want it, and daydreaming in then what you do want, that isn't doing nothing. Okay, that isn't doing nothing. It's a collective energy that actually begins. What you want to do is be more like Micah. But again, remember, you radiate out particular energies. As you learn and grow, you dump that yourself into the Akashic. So you radiate different information out of your energies. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're around people at work or whatever, you potentially could start to see changes. Be brave enough to have a conversation every now and then. You may start to see some changes occur that go along again with your daydreaming, let's say, that the goal is to convince you to do it, because again, everyone wants this to come from the top down. They want Washington to be stormed. They want all these changes to make the trickle down economics. Trickle down economics don't work. And so this whole it's going to be done with the people in a very strong foundation that then seeps its way up. The one thing, again, that we've always said, I still stick with it. And again, even if we use the category of the cabal, there are not horrible people. Some people in the cabal are good people waiting to really come out of the shadows.
The label that's put on this, and also there are those in the supposed white hats that aren't that great either. So, and also this leads me to what a white hat actually is. People like to label it as Q. When you hear me say white hat, people go, "Oh, you must support the Q movement." No, I don't, because that's cabal. So I support the people that are banding together and actually trying to actually change things. That's a white hat. And you also have some of the militaristic white hats that are doing things with the background. They're not saving, they're not rescuing, they're just assisting. They're fixing the things that they can fix. You have to fix the things you can fix.
And again, what do we mean by a white hat? So let's define that for you. Okay. It's going to be perspective what a white hat is. So for me, what is a white hat? A white hat is somebody basically, in my opinion, working on the dirty plumbing. There are clogs everywhere, and then there's intentional clogs. You got people throwing things down the toilet to keep you from being able to get past a certain spot. Okay. And so you have to think of it like that. It's being done on an energetic level and being done on a physical level where they literally can block, being
Hmm.
done on the psychosocial level where they know how to mind manipulate and this, that, and the other. So for me, what are white hats doing? White hats are basically literally unclogging the plumbing,
Hmm.
okay, enough so that your experience can expand. Okay, so part of the experience and expansion is learning how to overcome this. So a white hat will not come in and fix it for you because you're not going to be denied what it's like to feel to grow your way out of it. A white hat will maybe undo the clog that is keeping you from being able to expand in a certain area. You've got to understand this because people still want a savior. Now, does that mean that certain people don't need to be removed from the chessboard? No, certain people will end up having to be removed from the chessboard, let's say.
Hmm.
Okay. And again, there could be people that have to fulfill that role to literally pull these people off the chessboard. But again, that is not going to lead to instant kumbaya. There is still going to be a lot of human upon human things that you have to learn to grow to overcome and to change in your own reality. Part of it is going to be down the road. There's got to be mechanisms put into place to do what we can to not let humans not be corrupted. Getting corrupted is easy. It's
Hmm.
hard to stay not corrupted. So things to put into place to kind of help people not be susceptible to some of this corruption. That will come down the pike. I don't know how down the road, but in order to move in a direction that we all want to move into, it seems pretty logical that that kind of stuff is going to have to come into existence in order to assist people to be there for the highest good of others versus to be tempted by corruption. Because very good people have been compromised. So then that's the one thing you don't want to believe either. You want to think it's all dirty, rotten scumbag who go up there and they're just dirty, rotten scum. No, some people went up there with the greatest of benevolence, kind, good people, and still got corrupted within the system. And so putting mechanisms into place is going to be important down the road.
Yes, and I've also seen this. You've heard me say this, also on YouTube a couple of times as well, where there are different people in different groups out there that they start with the best of intentions, but then somebody infiltrates their group. It could be anything from simple like conference to even a yoga studio to anything like that. They could have the best of intentions. Somebody joins to try to change the rules just a little bit and nudge it just a little and just a little and just a little, and then eventually it's out of your control completely. Or they have a leader in there that's not doing things correctly. What you do is, if you're not agreeing with how these the whatever group you're associated with does things, start your own thing, or find a way to start your own thing. There's always people that stand around, go or sit around and go, well, if I was in charge of this, and you've heard me say this before, well, if you were in charge of this, stop whining about it and do your own thing. Don't just sit around and complain about it. That don't be that person. A lot of these different, I've seen this at multiple different conferences, fairs, groups, all over the place, where there's always a couple of people. And I even saw this in the rendezvous crowd when I was a kid, when my father and I went to reenactments. Some of the people in charge always had this weird, creepy way of doing things, and then would kind of assimilate other people into their little coven, let's just say, of how to do things. And then those people were acting in a horrible way that they said they would never act. Or they would treat people in a way that said they would never act. I've seen this in jobs too, where they get into the inner circle with the bosses and they start acting just like them. And because they've got those energetics around them and they start picking up on these mannerisms, they start acting this way because they feel that's the way that you're supposed to do things when you get into those inner circles. And you're not supposed to do things that way. It's supposed to be totally different than that. My point is, all of these groups have some infiltration somewhere, even on the small street level, let's just say. I have seen it all over the place. There's always at least one person always at least one person in any group that is bitching, moaning, complaining, or they're causing division in some way, or you have somebody that started a group that maybe they'll have one little nuance that's incorrect, or one little nuance that isn't working, or they've made a deal with somebody that they probably shouldn't have, It always happens this way. And it definitely happens in politics, and it definitely happens in these other circles you're not seeing. But it happens on street level constantly. Its programming is all over the place, and it's not going away overnight. And even if those machines that actually caused it were completely shut off, would people mass awaken like the New Age crowd thing? Absolutely not. It would be more like people would wake up and go, "Why did I do that? Maybe I'll do something different this morning." It's not going to be like, "Oh my God, we're going into energy and this." No, 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 no. It doesn't work that way, folks. It's and even if they don't, they don't. The programming might have been too entrenched to
Well,
actually
all that's
fix.
happening
Yeah.
is that the machine turned off. Now it's a decision. Now that there's not
Now you
that
have free will.
blockage.
Yeah. Now
What you
that
gonna
blockage isn't
do?
away. Well, yeah,
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
the white hats that like the Mozen and some of those other groups are fighting to actually get some of those things shut off, but it doesn't mean they're going to make decisions for you. So that's a very important thing to remember. They're not going to come house to house after a while going, here's a food replicator, or here's a med bed, or something like that. No, it's going to maybe integrated into society, but they're not, some of these groups are not going to come to your house and basically make these decisions for you. The only thing they're doing is they'll turn off the things that are making decisions for you. That's an overage right there. So of course, that's something they would take care of. They would become the overage if they started making decisions for you. So that's a very important thing to remember right there as well. They don't want to be the infiltrators. They don't want to be the corruption. So you'll hear that from white hats out there. You'll hear that from even military white hat humans. You'll hear that sometimes that same thing. I have at least several times. So before we ramble anymore, I think this is a good place to have this. Unless you have anything to add.
Again, other things for you to think about, things that have been shown to you this week. Again, I know for a lot of people now, they're in a lot of fear, right? I know a lot of people now are in fear. I don't think this is the time for you to be in fear. I think this is the time for you to kind of work on yourself, embrace things, and assert who you are and your energies. Again, hopefully most of you identify with being someone who tries to be kind and understanding. Not everybody, because there's going to be jerks in this world who are meant to go through a jerk experience. But in many of you, probably would identify yourself as someone like that. Then you're going to have to give up things like being so angry all the time at the group of people that aren't as far along as you wanted them to be, because you have a fear that they're holding you back. They're not holding you back. There's still some nooks and crannies and cleanings. And then the goal is, how do you work on your own energies to expand them to help others feel comfortable with moving as well? And, you've got to change your perspectives on, things like that. And then how do I make myself be known in a way that is, going to be productive to the ends of what I want to see versus non-productive. So you've got to learn all of this. We're in the midst of it, meant to be in the midst of it, and will continue to be as, things happen. Now, before we leave, I don't know if you want to do this yet. What to look for in the upcoming weeks? So, just again, look for more things that help you better discern what I call our strategies that are used. Look for how people are manipulated. Look for how people are lulled back to sleep. Look for those types of strategies, because this is where knowledge is power. It really is. Once you know the game book and how it's used, we've always said it's used over and over and over and over again. Some people are recognizing
this.
Why
fix it if it ain't broke?
Why, if it's worked before, we're gonna do it again. We haven't done it in 80 years. Let's start doing it again. See if it will work again. How we can move the masses, how we can change the way people think. So you have to, again, try to recognize the strategies that are being used, okay? And if right now, If you are clever, you can talk about the strategies that are being used, and you're not going to get shut down because they are working on other things to shut people down. And the strategy of how it all works is not one of those things. It's on their hit parade because they don't think anybody's that smart to figure it out.
Yeah, and so you have to figure it out what is actually going on. Anything that is causing you to divide, that's a divide and conquer strategy. And even that there's anything that's trying to lull you back to sleep to get you in those lower frequencies. This is their tactic. They've used it for a very, very long time. Get people to fight, get people to argue, saying, "Oh, this party did this party did that." Yeah, are some of those parties at fault? Absolutely, but it's like for some of these things. But
Oh yeah, when they play their roles, they play them good.
oh, they play them to the hilt. So are they guilty of sin? Yes, they are. So
but it is a playette
yeah.
to control.
Yeah, it's a playette to control. That's why we call it the theater of puppets, because those beings are puppets to other beings out there. So just so you know that, I mean, we've said that multiple times, but just know that also things to lull you back to sleep, like paying you off, for instance, like with these stimulus checks, which again, this is another area where you cannot just sit and pray and wait and hope. People do this over disclosure all the time. And I always tell people, do not sit and just pray and hope. You have to act on things. You have to even clearing the energetics, even fixing things that way. You're still acting. You're still acting on it. Well, people are going, "Oh, once we get these checks, everything will back to normal." Why would you want it back to? And I've said this on Interstellar Council too. Why would you want it back to what was normal? It was not normal. It was abnormal. You were sitting on a false foundation. You were sitting on lies. Why would you want to be lulled back to sleep? What you really want is peace. This is what you figure peace and the old normal were the same thing. No, sleeping and the old normal was the way. And I'm not actually going to use the term the new normal because that's their words.
Well, again, the other thing constant is change. And if you want to expand and grow, you're going to constantly change.
You have to constantly change.
You can't hang out somewhere back there.
And being uncomfortable means you're actually changing. And it's only going to accelerate from here, folks. It's only going to accelerate. Are there going to be plenty of uncomfortable periods? Yeah, for some people, but other people will glide on right through it. It just depends who's looking at this and why and for what and why they're here. A lot of these people in the swamp and a lot of people identifying the swamp were actually put there so that you wouldn't accept the swamp being in place. What do you want? And I know want denotes future, but how are you going to apply what you've learned last year, this year? Are you going to want to get lulled back to sleep and just go back into your routine? Or are you going to create and change and become a new set of routines and another set? Are you going to continue to change that way? And I'm sorry to the people that lost a lot during 2020. I really am. And there's a lot of people around us that have went belly up because of this. And I'm sorry that's happened. But just know that, yes, the whole new normal is oppression, but do you want oppression in your life? And do you want to go back to the old supposed normal, which was a false platform? There is no going back from this point. The genie's been let out of the bottle, and there is no putting it back. You have to keep moving forward at this point and see things how they play out, and putting your co-creative skills as to how you want these things to actually play out. So, Joanna, I don't know if you have anything left.
No, I think that's great.
I think we can end that here. This has been another discussion with me and Joanna today. The date of this happening is 1/10/21, mid-afternoon. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye-bye now.